add in here. Yeah. Okay. That's pretty interesting. So, yeah, I mean, basically how this is going to work is, I just have a list of questions here for Christian and Jason, and I'm going to chime in as well with kind of some of my personal experiences along the way, wherever they make sense, and yeah, if you have relevant questions, feel free to chime in, and there's a chance that it might come in later into my line of questioning, so I may hold off on it, but yeah, don't feel free to get involved. So yeah, I think what we're just going to start with is see. So why don't you guys? We'll start with Christian. Why don't you just say your name, how long you've been doing film, and then tell us if you went to film school.
My name is Christian Klein, and I started working in film in 2011, so about 8 years. And I did go to film school.
Nice. And then Jason?
Yeah, I'm Jason, and I graduated college. I was a film major in 2005, and just kind of was trying to find my way into film immediately after. So I started working in 2005, and yeah, still going.
Man, Jason, you've been doing it a long time. So I guess, Christian, what was your experience like at film school? Were you shooting a lot, or were you just kind of trying a lot of different things? Like, how was that beginning out?
Yeah. I mean, for me, like my film school really started in my senior year of high school because they had this program called the Regional Occupation Program, which was kind of like a vocational school. And so the last 2 periods of the day, the like local high schools would all go meet at the local television station. And so that was kind of like a college course into TV and film. And that's how I like made my initial contacts. And then from there, I went to a junior college in Fremont, and they also had a pretty good broadcast program. But I guess my like formal film school was at San Jose State, and I was there for 2 years.
And I seem to remember that like when we met working on a movie together, yeah. And when we met, I think you were still in high school at that point, honestly.
Yeah, so I got on that first feature through that ROP program because I met Nick Mahar, and he asked me if I wanted to go PA grip on a feature in Oakland, and then that's where I met you and Matt on that.
And then because you had some time where you got out of high school, and then were you just working, or were you still going to, because it took a few years for you to go to college, I think.
No, I went to the junior college, Ohlone, right after I graduated, but I was working, doing lighting and grip throughout that.
Okay. That's right. And then did you, and then once you did start film school, were you shooting a lot? Were you the DP in the program, or how was that?
I was a DP in the program.
Not the DP?
It was definitely always the goal to shoot. So yeah, in film school, I was shooting.
Yeah.
I guess professionally, I was doing lighting.
Gotcha. Okay. And then, yeah, Jason, as far as you go, what was film school like for you and that whole process?
I went to UC Santa Cruz, and it definitely wasn't a traditional film program there. It was very theoretical and academic. I knew I wanted to get into it from the beginning because I was in high school. I got into cable access television in San Francisco, and it was a pretty wild time. I actually really missed those cable access days because they were pretty wild. And but yeah, so that got me interested in film. I didn't know I wanted to do camera per se, or I just wanted to direct films. And then yeah, the program there was very theoretical, even though we did do production stuff, but we just had no technical training. I graduated from Santa Cruz not knowing what a DP was. Wouldn't even be able to tell you what that stood for. And I didn't know what a gaffer was. I had no idea. It was all you're on your own. Here's like some low lights. And all my student films were just like an open face, like on an actor with a red gel in front of it. It was pretty rough. Like, but we had great theoretical knowledge and like, you know, different eras in film and like what they stood for and what sort of like impacts and reflections of society they were.
Yeah, well, that's kind of funny because I feel like my experience with film school was like 100% the opposite. Where like we watched, so like I went to like a 1-year film school. It was called the San Francisco School of Digital Filmmaking. I think they changed the name, but when I went, like I think it was a year-long program, and we only watched one movie the whole time, and it was like Monster Ball or something, like just the most random movie. But it was like all we did was we made 5 films. We worked on each other's projects, and you know, for me, it was like my dad was a photographer, and so like I had made a bunch of skate videos in high school, and so it's like, okay, like, you know, doing the technical side just kind of like came very naturally to me. Hey, all right, we have another SFSTF alum. but yeah, so it's like for me, it's like I had like no theoretical training at all, and actually I ended up going to DVC afterwards and taking some film theory classes just to like try and get, you know, some sort of film history knowledge after that. But yeah, it's kind of interesting to see. Yeah, we've all taken very, very different paths to kind of get to where we are. So once you guys got out of school, you know, what kind of jobs were you getting off the bat, and kind of, you know, what made you head in that direction? We'll start with Jason.
Yeah, I was just kind of like on Craigslist daily, had my like routine of like looking for anything, and did a bunch of PA jobs, and that was cool because then like did that, and I could kind of see the structure because I had no understanding of like how a film set worked at all. So it was cool to see like the lighting department and camera department, kind of see the divisions. And then I still didn't quite know what I was going to work on. And then I did some stuff in sound, and I did some stuff in lighting. All the while, like all that stuff was pretty much like unpaid and free stuff, or it could have been like a $25 stipend a day. So
where were you living at that point?
I was back home in San Francisco.
Oh, okay.
in Excelsior. Yeah, and then I just tried to find normal work that would be very flexible to let me do all that stuff. So I was a caterer, a valet driver, and also a substitute teacher for San Francisco Unified.
Nice.
And all that stuff was cool because it was all like by the day, and it was very flexible. So I could, if this film thing came up, I could drop that and make myself available to PA on this film, or, you know, to any number of those things.
Cool. And yeah, so didn't you, like, you worked for a while after that as a camera assistant? Is that right? Yeah.
So I mean that was just initially, and then on one of those jobs I did, I was working as a grip for Alan Chun, and on a film, and it was a film that was 3 nights long. It was midnight to noon each day, and like we were all like totally annihilated by like 10 a.m. But there's this old guy in his 80s named Ken Hilmer, who was a camera assistant, and he was like totally 100% even come 11 a.m. next day, and he just had this incredible work ethic. And I asked him if he would teach me how to be a film loader, and this was still during when film was the dominant thing, and he didn't want to do it at first, and I bothered him like once a month for about 6 months, and then he's like, fine, okay, I'll teach you. And he had this like 5-week workshop he used to teach like decades earlier, and he dusted off that binder and taught me how to load every magazine that was still working. So that got me into camera department, because I started becoming a film loader. And it was such a technical job. There were very few people who could do it, because that was sort of the end of film right at that time too. So it was kind of cool to have this real technical skill set that not a lot of people had at that time.
Yeah, for sure. Cool. And then, yeah. So Christian, what about you when you got out of school? What kind of jobs were you doing?
Well, so right after I graduated, I pretty much moved to LA right away.
Did you, right after you graduated?
Yeah, I think it may have been like a month maybe after I graduated.
Wow. Okay. So I mean, I guess that all while you were going to school, then you were working doing lighting then.
Yeah. Yep. So I was doing like a lot of corporate work, gaffing for John Leesma, which is Bright Source Productions, which actually I was like working for Jason and also for Matt. And then when I moved to LA, I just like reached out to everyone that I knew that I had met in the Bay Area that had moved to LA. And one person in particular was recommending me to shoot a feature. And then like I got so lucky. It was literally like maybe a month of having been in LA, I got a feature in San Diego.
That's right. So then how long would you say that you worked in lighting before you ultimately started, before you were like finished with school and you decided, okay, I'm going to start shooting?
Yeah. Yeah, because even after that, I still didn't really know that many people in LA. So even after that feature, I was still doing some lighting in LA. Like even actually right before that feature, I key gripped like a week of a different feature.
I mean, it must have been like 3 years or something that you were doing lighting, right?
Yeah, I would say so.
Something like that. Oh, yeah. I mean, for me, it was just like as soon as I got out of school, I thought that I really wanted to do camera department, and so like I kind of went full on into that, and just because I was like, oh, okay, I kind of knew that I wanted to shoot, and so I was like, well, if I want to shoot, that means I should be in the camera department, and I started doing that, and actually I worked for Jason on a number of projects as a camera assistant, and it was definitely fun, and I like learned a lot, but I think it took me a couple of years of doing that before I just kind of got to a point where I was like, maybe camera department is not really for me in terms of being a camera assistant. I still knew that I wanted to shoot, but I just felt like whenever I did my projects, I was just like really lacking in terms of lighting, and I'd have somebody gaff for me, and I'd just like very quickly lose control in terms of like understanding what they were doing and like how they were doing it, and what tools they were using to achieve that. And so I think it took me a couple of years before I was just like, okay, I have to stop working as a camera assistant, and I just started telling all my friends like, okay, I just want to do lighting now. So if you have a grip job or electric job, I'm in. I'll do that. And yeah, so I'm gonna answer the next question kind of before for you guys. It's just like in terms of what led me to do those jobs in the first place was just like yeah, I guess it's for working as a camera assistant, it's just because I knew that I wanted to DP and felt like that was a natural progression. And as I learned more, understood more about it, it's just like, oh, okay, need to learn more about lighting. And I think that that for me was just like, I mean, yeah, I ended up doing lighting for almost, I still do it sometimes, but I'm gonna say like so it was a solid 9 years, because I got out of school in 2007, and I think that I like stopped taking full-time jobs in 2017, something like that. So it must have been 10 years. But yeah, and all the time, the whole reason why I kept doing those lighting jobs was just because I was still at the point where I was learning a lot, and still felt like I was like, okay, I can apply this to my smaller projects, and I'm still like seeing how larger and larger jobs operate. Yeah, and so I think I'm going to take it one further. So as far as me deciding like, okay, I'm going to DP now, it was just really I gaffed a union commercial that was kind of on the smaller side, but it still had a decent budget, and I just like I saw what the DP was doing, and I was still shooting at that time, and just kind of got to a point where I was like, I just feel like as a gaffer, I'm like making all these decisions that I could totally be making as the DP. And I don't know what's holding me back at this point. There's really not much of anything. And, just figured, why not? Here's, I guess, it's now or never. And so at that point I was like, okay, I'm just going to try and DP now and, forget about trying to do this kind of stuff. Cause I think the main thing for me was just like, I just got bored. That was really it. I stopped learning. So yeah, so I guess, Jason, like, how long did you work as an AC before you started thinking, oh, maybe I want a DP?
Yeah, it was, I don't know the exact years. I mean, it must have been like 5 to 7 years, and it would taper off towards the end there. So I started as a loader, and I got pretty serious about that. And I was like just loading. I didn't want to first. And I was seeking out every opportunity to work with firsts who were pretty amazing and learn from them. And did that for quite a while, and then started firsting, and I'd load and other stuff too. And then towards the end, I started being kind of selective with which DPs I was working with, because I knew I wanted to switch over to being a DP only. But there were there's so much to learn, and some DPs I worked with, I just really would make sure I'd always AC for them no matter what if they called me. So there was definitely, like, the last couple of years of my time as an AC, it was just for a handful of people, and I was trying to shoot as much as I could on the side. And all while that was happening, I was working as a news cameraman too. So I was always with a camera and trying to, more documentary style. But I was in the field driving a news van doing that too.
Okay, interesting. And then, yeah, I guess, like, how did you make the decision to start working as a DP?
I think as soon as I got into camera department, I knew that that's what I wanted to do. And it was just about trying to get the skills and experience to get to that place. And then, it was just, I think I knew right away. At first I thought I wanted to be a director, and it just over time, I was like, geez, directors spend all their time raising money, and like, it's like they could spend years to be on set for a little while, and I just don't have that kind of patience. I want to be out there, working with a team and making movies as much as possible. So being a crew member seemed like the best way to do that.
Mm-hmm. For sure. Yeah. What about you, Christian? What, I guess, like, what was it that made you start shooting and stop doing lighting?
Yeah, I mean, similarly to Jason, I always wanted to DP. Ever since I worked on that first feature, seeing a cinematographer work, I was like, oh yeah, that's the goal. That's what I want to do. And so doing lighting and grip was just like a way to learn how sets actually work, and learning from other DPs and gaffers. So sorry, what exactly was the question again?
Oh, just like, yeah, how did you make that decision to start working as a DP? It seems like it was just kind of a natural progression for you, I guess.
A gradual progression. I mean, I feel like I was a bit lucky because I was doing professional lighting while I was in school shooting. So it was like I had that safe space to shoot and meet directors and like build up a reel basically. And then moving to LA was kind of the way that I was able to transition, because you get so branded as what people see you doing. Since I didn't really know anyone in LA, I was able to just kind of call myself a DP and then start doing that, trick people into me doing that.
Until you make it.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Christian, did you kind of go cold turkey and turn down all the jobs except for DP jobs, or were you just floating back and forth?
For a couple of years, it was both. I was doing both. But then there was a point where I did start turning down all the lighting work, which felt very counterintuitive and very scary. But it ended up working. I mean, it was maybe a couple months that were really slow, but then the DP work was definitely picking up. I mean, I should also say that I also camera operate as well, and that does help fill in the gaps between DP work.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, Jason, did you kind of like, what was that like the point where, 'cause I'm sure there's some point where you're like, okay, I'm not going to do anything but try and DP. What was that? How long did it take you to get to that point, and what was that like?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's still happening, right? It's like something that is like you're just constantly trying to chisel away at where you want to be. So there's been waves of that where I would AC any chance I could get, and then it became I only want to do it for these certain DPs, and it came out to a point where it was only like one DP that I would always say yes to no matter what.
Uh-huh.
And I would like not want anyone to know about it. And then, and then there was even times like, cause you're like, just last year I did a shoot, and the one we were on together that we talked about last time, the producer from that said, wait, weren't you the AC on that thing back in 2008? And just still had thought of me as AC. And I think they questioned if they wanted me to DP it or not. So that is like a very real issue, being
Very confusing for people. If they see you doing one thing, it's hard to picture them doing something else. That's why
yeah.
it's important at a certain point anyways, that you do have to make the decision to be that certain thing. It's hard to do both, I think.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. Go ahead, Jason.
Oh yeah, I was going to say, so I still think it's like that thing of, you hear a lot about like learning to say no. There were times where, then I would be mostly shooting, and that's how I made my income and work. And then became the point where like, I don't want to shoot corporate stuff anymore. So I'm not going to do these types of shoots anymore. And trying to get it to the place you want it to be. And it's like, it's just a constant thing.
Yeah, I kind of feel like let's see, because I did lighting for so long, I got into the union as a lighting technician, that it ended up being kind of great for me, just because I never really had the issue of doing a job and being concerned that a producer or somebody would see me working as an electrician, and then question whether or not I was capable of doing another job as a DP, just because there was no way ever that I would be up for the jobs as a DP on the jobs that I was an electrician on, just because they were so much bigger that it was just like, okay, like, no, if I tell anybody here that I DP, they'll tell me it's cute, something like that. But so I mean, I think that and I think that's kind of like, it's kind of funny how, Jason, how you said just like, having that one person that it's like, okay, I work for just these handful of people now, and now it's just this one person I always say yes to. And that's kind of where I've been at, where I have one gaffer where if they ask me to come out, I'll, most of the time I'll do it. And it's just, it's a lot of fun. I'm with my friends, and it's pretty low stress. But like, if anybody else asks me, I'm just like, oh, I'm booked. Sorry, not available. But
and I always kind of wonder how real that is too. Like if you get seen as a certain role, if it really is gonna like hinder you on the next thing, because like that job with you, Matt, like it just took a 2-second phone call and then we were clear. It was just like, there was just a moment of hesitance, and then beyond that, it was not really an issue. But there is this fear of like being branded a certain way.
Yeah, I've definitely had experiences with where I remember like Matt, they asked Matt or something for a DP, and they gave him my name, and they were like, oh, wait, we have him in our system as a grip or something, and they were like, can you give us somebody else?
Also, like, they just won't even think of to call you for the job, because if they think of you as a DP, then they won't hit you up.
Yeah, I definitely think that some producers are more understanding than others, and it sounds like, Jason had a lucky experience.
Right. Well, I mean, as we're talking, I'm thinking too about, there's certain production companies I've worked for, I've done more documentary style work, and they won't call me for their commercial type work, or vice versa.
Yeah.
And then on that one job where I will get to do it, they'll be like, oh, well, I didn't know you could shoot doc style. And it's like we've never called you for that before because we didn't know you shoot docs.
Yeah, for sure. Um, so, Christian, I think you've kind of already answered this question, but like, what was your first big job as a DP?
Yeah, it was the feature in San Diego.
So I think that Chris's question actually works in very well here. He says, "How do you deal with imposter syndrome?" So, like, did you that first job that you got, did you feel like an imposter?
Yes, for sure. I think what helped was that the director was also really young, and it was like a coming of age story out of high school. So I mean, it was super relatable for me, and something that I could connect with. So I felt like I could do the story justice, and yeah, it ended up working out, which was cool because then that actually led to another feature that was in the Bay Area with a director that I knew through film school, and Matt Stoop actually gaffed that.
Nice. Did you still feel like an imposter then?
For sure. Yeah. Always.
I feel like, yeah, that is definitely a thing that comes up. I can't believe, like, I wrote this question and I've been like trying to think of, like, I knew my answer prior to this, but now that I'm like thinking of it, I'm like, oh gosh, what was kind of the first job that I got? But um I don't know. I kind of the one it's kind of funny because, like, this job that I got must have been like so long after, but I feel like it was actually a commercial that I got from you, Christian, for this company called Hello Design.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, it's like, it was a super simple commercial. Like, all we were doing was we had an Alexa Mini on a jib, and we're just like looking straight down at products, and it was just a bunch of different collections of products, kind of like almost tabletop stuff. Um, and I think that for that, with the imposter syndrome thing, was just like, okay, I'm just gonna, like, all I did was I hired the people who I knew were good, and just kind of did what I've seen everybody else do, and push on, and then, oh look, it turns into a very normal job.
To like answer that, how do you deal with it? I mean, I think that's the benefit of having come up through lighting or grip or through camera department, is that you get to meet all these other experienced crew members and you build up those relationships. And then when you then have the opportunity to hire them, you can bring on these people who are more experienced than you are, or
Yeah.
as you are.
For sure. And then you can ask these people to kind of do these, favors for you, and help you out on what might be a smaller job or something like that, even though they have much more experience than you'd expect.
Yeah. And so you just trust the people around you. And that, I think that gives a lot of confidence to yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that too. It's just like, over time building confidence, like, oh yeah, my decisions are, accurate, correct. And realizing that you do have the experience to do the jobs.
Yeah.
Jason, I guess, what was your first kind of bigger job that you did?
Well, there's a few that made me like very uncomfortable going into it. but like an early one was when I was film loading. I was just like looking for any film loading job I could do, and I checked the New Mexico Film Board, and there was this film shoot in New Mexico, and they needed an AC film loader, and I like applied for it. I flew myself out there and like joined that crew, and it was a big, huge shoot, and I was totally scared, but it was great though. It was like just, I think forcing yourself into those situations is really important. Just kind of being uncomfortable, but then just trusting yourself to get through it, and usually it works out.
Yeah. I like this question from Marcos. How do you deal with anxieties before shoots?
Push through it. I don't know.
For me, I just try to prep as much as I can. And I like to talk with the director as much as I can too. And just, if the more that I'm on the same page and the more that I can talk with my department heads, the better I feel. I mean, just because that's where the anxiety comes from, is like, oh, what if
Yeah.
train doesn't show up, or what if I don't know, whatever, something goes wrong. And if you can plan and try to mitigate that as much as possible, that's what helps me with the anxiety, at least.
Yeah, for sure. So, Christian, I guess, like, did you have a reel at that point when you got hired for that San Diego feature? And like, I guess, like, what kind of jobs do you want to shoot? And then, like, how did you start to make a reel to kind of fit that kind of work?
I did have a reel just through film school. So I had made that. The types of jobs that I want to shoot are indie dramas, indie character-driven drama features. And I would like to do commercials as well, but something that has a story behind it. And then, sorry, what was the last part of that?
Just like, how did you start to come up with how did you like continue to build your reel once you got out of school and started working more? Like, were you doing, like, was it all from the paid work that you got? Did you put any money into projects that you believed in? Or
yeah, I mean, aside from those 2 features, I did a ton of freebie short films and music videos, and that's kind of how I was, and not only building the reel, but just meeting more people and meeting collaborators. I mean, through you, Ryan, I found out about Channel 101, and that was like a gold mine of indie directors, and that's how I met Jason, was through you. And we've done a bunch of shorts now, and the latest one went to Sundance.
Yeah. It definitely has been very good. Did I guess any of those short projects, were you just investing your time, or did you ever invest any of your own money into it?
I guess both. I mean, in a way, like on a lot of the music videos, I still do put my rate back into it to push for better equipment or something that would just be more beneficial for me and for the reel, really. I don't think I've necessarily put my money into something to make like a spec commercial. Like, I know you did that, Ryan, and a lot of other DPs have done that. I haven't necessarily done that, but I have done that. I have put in money into narrative projects, just to assist the budget or make it better.
What about you, Jason? Like, what, when you started working as a DP, how were you coming up with a reel? And, like, were you making your own projects or just finding directors?
I think it was just from whatever I had. My thinking back on now, my earliest reels had like news footage in it, mixed with like a really bad short film, mixed with maybe a student thing with like the red light I was talking about. Like, I mean, it's definitely like constantly evolved. So it's just whatever I had to work with. I don't think I've done a few projects of my own, but nothing that's ever made it into a reel, and it wasn't really for that. They're more documentary focused. But I mean, but for the films, it's like you're saying, like putting your rate back into it, or there's no rate, or I haven't financed a movie to do it, but I've definitely like brought gear that's gotten damaged and I indirectly paid for it. That's definitely happened.
Sure.
Yeah.
A very unfortunate situation. And I guess that let's see. So eventually I ended up, shortly after, like, I started turning down, lighting work, and I was in the union. It just, for me, I was like, okay, well, I know that I want to be shooting union projects. So pretty much right after that, I ended up joining 600. And I just joined as a digital utility. It was kind of funny just because, like, basically you can join as digital utility without any days, or honestly, you can, like, I called them and said, hey, I want to join as digital utility. And they were like, okay, like, have you done the job before? And I was like, no, definitely not. I'm a DP. I have no interest in doing that job. I just want to get in so I can have the benefits of membership. And they were like, okay, do you like know what that job position does? And I was like, yeah, it's, the plug-in monitors, move around wireless. I got it. It's fine. And they're like, okay, as long as you're fine with paying the money. And and so, I paid, I got in, and then from that, though, they have a mentorship program that I eventually did. And, I got to meet with a commercial DP, Sean Bagley, who I just had lunch with him once and talked to him about, what it would take to start getting into commercials. Because that's primarily my focus, is just like stylized commercials. If they're that's all of the year that I signed up was 2017. Yeah, 2017. So I really wanted to do like stylized narrative commercials. Like that's the goal. And so, I talked to Sean about that, and what he had recommended was, and what worked for him was, he just made spec commercials that he produced and directed. I really, really didn't want to direct anything. And it's like, I have like zero interest in that. So it took me a long time, but I eventually found 2 different directors who had specs that they wanted to do. And I ended up just financing them completely on my own. And I think it definitely like weirded out the directors a little bit. Just like having your DP be the executive producer basically of your project. But I think that it eventually, I came out of it with 2 really good spots that I was like super proud to show to anybody. And it just kind of helped with I think it really helped with the imposter thing, where it was like, okay, like, yeah, if somebody gave me money, I totally could do this. I can make something that does look good. And like, I don't know, there's a lot of projects that I shoot now where I, on the day I'm like, okay, I'm feeling pretty good about this. And then I see the final project later with color, and they've edited it, in the edit. And it's just like, it's pretty tough, I feel like, to have like zero control of the edit and of color, and for then it to turn into something that you're like super proud of. You're definitely like, you're fighting a little bit of an uphill battle there in my experience. So Jason, I guess what are you doing to try to meet directors in the first place?
I don't know if I'm terribly good at that.
Oh yeah.
Seems like, yeah, I don't know. Definitely just people I kind of started with, who we were all like PAing together, or just over the years, just people you meet as you go along. I've reached out to some people in the past. So I've reached out. I saw like a movie I really liked, and I wrote the director, and like told them I loved their movie and would love to work with them someday. And that's never worked out. That's never happened, but it's something I hope for. Yeah. But it's really just people I've met over the years through this industry. Not that many people I've met just out of nowhere. Or it could be a director I've worked with, and they have a friend who's making a film, and then they recommend me to them, and that's how it's happened.
For sure. What about you, Christian? What are you doing?
Yeah, same for me. All of my current or past projects have just been through either referrals or people that I've met along the way. But because there is the whole thing about like reaching out to people on Instagram or something of people's work that you like, but I just haven't gotten the courage to really do that. I just don't want to come off needy or weird. I don't know. But it seems like a viable thing. I do think like film festivals are a wonderful place for that. And that actually has worked for me. But just like after a shorts block will play, and if there was one particular film that you liked, going up to the filmmaker afterwards and talking with them. Something that, like, I don't know, it's tricky though, because usually if it's a good short and you liked it,
You're not the only one.
you have a DP that they're working with or something, but I mean, they're always available. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, actually, that kind of brings up, I think hearing you guys talk makes me realize, okay, what am I doing? But I would say the film festival thing, that has totally worked for me, where I had a short called Squirrel in Sundance 2 years ago, and afterwards, I feel like this is like the best move by any director I've worked with who's gone to a film festival. Is he, at the Q&A afterwards, he just said, hey everybody, we're having a very exclusive party at Five Guys across the street. If anybody wants to join, come join us. And it was funny because, like, he said this to a room of maybe like 200 people, and we got about 10 like diehard fans of our movie who came and just talked to us for a while. And two of them ended up being directors that I made friends with and ended up shooting stuff for, once I got back home. And yeah, and then the other thing too that Christian mentioned earlier is Channel 101, which is like this. How to describe it? Basically, it's a monthly film festival where people make web series, like 5-minute web series, and every month they screen 10 5-minute web series, and the audience votes on which 5 they like and which 5 they think should come back for another episode. And so I had one friend of mine who was doing that, and I shot a show that ended up we ended up shooting this thing for like 8 episodes. So it went for like 8 months, something like that. And just like through that, it was great because then every month we went to a screening, we got to, see this thing that we worked on. And it was just like a really good place to like meet people, see what people are up to and what they're doing. And just kind of makes that process of like the film festival thing of, talking to people after the screening, telling them that you like their work.
I think,
yeah.
I want to add to that, Ryan. I think also something I'm doing now is there's so many great Facebook group pages, and they typically will have like meetups. And so going to those have been special for me. And not only meeting with directors, but making friends and meeting other DPs, I think is maybe overlooked, because I mean, a lot of work is passed between other DPs.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree with that. I feel like the best jobs that I've gotten have come from other DPs. I don't know, Jason, have you kind of experienced
Yeah,
that?
no, totally. That's a good point you brought up, Christian. I think a lot of work is like someone can't do it, and then they want to send it to someone they trust, and that's some of the more interesting stuff. Like thinking back on it, that's definitely how it happens.
I mean, because the one thing, I mean, I transitioned young to being a DP. So like I definitely that's the aspect of lighting that I miss, is working for other DPs and other department heads. And so if you're friends with DPs, they might hire you just to cam op or something. And I think it's such a great position to be in, to just observe the set and watch another DP work. It's really amazing. And so there's still a lot of room to learn that way.
Yeah, and so Chris Brooks just asked, do you feel like you get more DP gigs from like camera or lighting guys, or from directors, producers / above the line kind of people? Christian, what do you think?
Yeah, for me, I guess it would be DPs and directors and producers. Yeah, not from lighting or grip people.
Do you think is it more through DPs or more through directors that directors and producers?
Directors probably would be the number one thing. and then followed by DPs, and then lastly producers.
I see.
We need more producers. Devin was on here. I don't know if he still is.
What about you, Jason?
I think it's definitely the bulk of my shootings from producers and directors I know, and it's the occasional job that comes in from another DP, but that's, you know,
Pretty
it's all
good,
like
yeah.
1 month could be nothing but that, and then the next 4 months are all from 2 production companies. It's just such a mixed bag.
Yeah, for sure.
Ryan,
Jason, yeah, go ahead.
I just saw one of the questions in there that, I mean, something that I dealt with a lot and still do deal with is
Sure.
that where did you rent a camera when you were making these specs, or do you own a camera when and same for you, Jason, when you were making like building up your reel and making the spec work, or even some of the lower budget jobs?
Yeah, so I think, Jason, you own a camera, right?
Yeah.
I guess at what point did you decide to buy a camera?
Must have been towards the end of when I was ACing. I mean, while I was ACing, I was always like shooting the news stuff. I was saying that wasn't with my camera, but I'd also try to shoot short films and anything else going on. I mean, I think owning a camera is like a tremendous asset, not necessarily for getting work, but for perfecting your skills. I mean, you can't be a musician and not have your violin or guitar that you practice with every day. You know, it's like how can you get good if you're only shooting like once every couple months? I think having one and experimenting with it and doing stuff even solo is like pretty vital. So like my first camera was an HVX, and then it became a 7D, which I had for several years, and then ultimately a Scarlett. It's just a constant evolution. But I think, you know, at this point, all the cameras are so good that I really don't think for building a reel, it doesn't really matter what you have, because they're all just such good performers now.
Yeah, for sure. Okay. Yeah, I have a bunch of questions here, but let me see if there's anything.
Yeah, so for me, it's a little bit different. I mean,
Yeah, go ahead, Christian.
my senior year of high school, I bought a 7D, and that was what I was shooting a lot of the student shorts on. And that's like what I built my reel with. And then in LA, I bought a Blackmagic Pocket camera and was using that to shoot shorts and stuff. But I never really wanted to own, and I think I mean, I think the markets are totally different. I think in the Bay, it may make more sense to own a camera. But there's so many rental houses in LA, and it's really affordable to rent. And I don't really want to have to deal with the business side of that. So I've been renting is basically the answer. But in the beginning, I did have an inexpensive camera to build a reel.
Yeah, I think that's kind of like how I've always been as well, where I've had, you know, the 7D, I had the A7S II, which I still have now. But, you know, in terms of getting you know, in terms of like buying what I would say a real camera, it's just like, I think it's something that Christian and I have gone back and forth on like a million times. And every day, yeah.
I think to get a job, like a long-term job that I could pay a good portion of it off. Like if it was a business-minded move, I would probably do it.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think I think that, you know, it's kind of, at least for me, the business side that makes me question it, just because I know that I know that it would be I don't feel like it would be a bad move for me as a DP, but in terms, I do feel like I would be very tempted to, you know, give it away to, you know, my friends who are doing their short film or whatever. And, you know, it just ends up, you know, it could end up costing me money as well.
But like Jason's saying, it might lead to shooting more, which would be cool.
Sure.
Well, I think it's not just like the shooting more, it's more about just like, you know, fine tuning your skill set and having that tool with you, and you can use it whenever you want.
Yeah.
I think for the camera, it's probably worth saying too, because I own a professional camera I use on commercial work. I don't make much money from it, if at all. It's usually, it ultimately breaks even. So it doesn't necessarily cost me anything to have it, but it doesn't earn anything really. It's just,
Yeah, sure.
it was just like it was something that I decided to do so I could have that tool ready for me when I want to do films. And then, like you're saying, Ryan, like give it away for that. You don't really get anything for it. And then on the commercials, it pays itself back. And it just has that sort of like,
You shot an feature with Ulrich, right? So did you
yeah,
end up, were you able to use your camera on that?
I did. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's all. I think that's great. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So it can like allow you to do that. You know?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we got like another camera donated too, but it was helpful to have two cameras on that movie.
Right.
So one always in a movie mode and the other one in more of a traditional studio mode. So, yeah.
Okay, so I have a couple more questions on my list here, and then I think we'll transition to the questions people are asking. So, um, I guess, Jason, do you, when you were working, did you find yourself saying yes to everything, or, are you selective about projects, and, and what, how are you being selective about those projects?
Yeah,
If you are.
I've been getting more selective about it. If there was like corporate shooting work has become something I'm just not doesn't excite me much anymore. So I try to push that off in favor of a commercial and prioritize that stuff.
When you say that, do you just mean like talking head interview?
Yeah, just something, or if it's like some sort of internal video, which the Bay Area's got a ton of this stuff, and I've done it for a long time, and it's something where I just, if it's between a movie where I'm going to make nothing or a corporate shoot, I've been trying to prioritize the movie first. And there was some advice I heard a long time ago. I forget who said it, but it was follow the jobs of your career and not the paycheck. And I think like early on I made that mistake where I'd be like, oh man, am I going to do this short film for $50 or do this like corporate thing where I could like pay my rent with? And and I do that or try to bend the film around to work with it and get really stressed out trying to schedule all of those things. And now I've just definitely been like, okay, I'm just going to do the movie and that's what it's going to be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a fine balance. It really is.
Yeah. What do you think, Christian? Have you been pretty selective, or are you just doing everything?
No, I was shooting everything. I mean, those first two features were no good. One didn't even come out. God knows.
We had a hell of a time. Hell of a good time.
Wonderful experience. I learned a lot. So in the beginning, yes, I was saying yes to everything, but for my own sake and my own happiness, and just like now I've had more time to grow and just like figure out what my tastes are, and now I'm becoming more selective as far as the creative projects go. I guess both, yeah, creative projects and branded commercial work, yeah. So
yeah,
it's a slow progression to become more selective.
I feel like I must be in a weird situation here, because I felt like I've always kind of been selective about the projects that I worked on. Just thinking back now, like, I was offered, I remember being offered like a couple like different reality shows or something like that, and just being like, no, I just can't. there's no way.
The benefit of, I mean, because you had union set lighting as like your financial.
Yeah.
So that gave you freedom to choose to be more selective in projects, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's kind of one thing that somebody had asked like way earlier was, if we were financing our own projects, like what, where were we getting money? And, so for me, it was just like, okay, I have this union set lighting job where I can go and, maybe even if I work a day a week or something, I can, make my rent. And then, and then I have the rest of this time to just like, work on whatever stuff I want. And so that, I think that kind of allowed me to be really selective about the projects that I did end up doing, and, what directors I did end up going after. And so I felt like I probably did like a lot more free jobs than I probably had to do, just because I was like, I just these are the kind of jobs that I want to do, whether or not, sure, they're not paying very well right now, but I'm sure that this will ultimately pay off in the end. So, so yeah, I mean, I still find myself doing some jobs
There's like
that
the
I
three.
regret.
It's like, is the script or the concept good? Is it paid? Or are there good people involved that you can work with? And I think like in the beginning, if one checks the box, then you do it. And then slowly but surely,
Yes.
you're like, okay, maybe 2 out of 3. And
Yeah.
then the goal is to have all 3, but few and far between.
Yeah. I guess, so it's funny because both me and Christian have worked for Jason before.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
But so Jason, I guess, how do you feel about hiring other DPs to work for you, like maybe as a gaffer or as a camera assistant, operator, things like that? Is that a welcome thing, or
I just don't think it really happens that much, or at least I'm not aware of it, at least. It doesn't bother me. I mean, I want to work with people who want to do the job they're doing. Like that, I think that's pretty important. And even if it's not forever, it's just at least at that time. Like if someone's pulling focus, with me, I want them to be like that. That's the job they're doing right there, and they're in it for that. And I feel like the AC that trained me, this guy Ken, I mean, he, that was his thing. Like he's like, when you're loading, like that's what you're doing. Your head's all in that, and on the day, like your job is to be of service to the camera department. And I mean, that's the kind of people I want to work with. So I think as long as their head's in that space, I don't have any sort of hesitance to hire someone.
what do you think, Christian?
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with that. I guess a little bit different of a perspective. The gaffer that I've been working with recently, like I know that he ultimately wants to shoot, but I mean, his current goal is, to be in 728 and to be gaffing union jobs. But I like the fact that he ultimately does want a DP because he comes to the project with a creative eye and may point out things that I'm not able to see or have good ideas. I'm all about taking the department head's ideas. I mean, anyone's ideas, if it's going to make it better.
Yeah, I definitely think that it's like, having somebody who has ideas, who, and I feel like, especially like a gaffer or, even an AC who like, that is DPing is in their future. It kind of helps to, for them to like have this creative input and have ideas about, what the lighting should look like, and just kind of like understand more than just like, oh, you want hard light? Okay, let's use a Leco, instead of something, something a little bit more than that. I guess I will say that like, I don't know. I guess this is definitely something that I have been concerned with in terms of how other gaffers or, other DPs might view me if I'm working for them. So like, I've gone so far as to have a separate set lighting email address. And, just cause like your name's on the call sheet and like your email's there and then it says Ryan Thomas DP. I don't know. Is that the best look?
I know even in jobs now that I operate on, I feel a little weird about it. My email says DP at the end of it.
Yeah,
I think it's worth mentioning. I submitted to be an operator on a feature with Roberto Schaefer as the DP, and he wrote me back and he's like, "I checked out your website. You're a DP. I'm looking for a camera operator," and so I was not hired for that.
I'm glad I asked this question then. That's pretty good. Okay. So, all right. Let's see. Okay, so I guess the last question that I have is just, what kind of jobs are you doing now, Jason? Or what are you doing?
Well, at the moment, I've been trying to do a documentary on the quarantine, and it's not like a paid thing. That's my own thing, just running around with my camera out there and sanitizing the tripod legs and doing all that weird stuff to keep safe. But before that, me and Matt, we just worked on Ulrich's feature, and then more recently, just commercial work. Bay Area type commercials.
Nice. And then what about you, Christian?
I recently, a feature I shot came out on Amazon. It's called.
Really good.
I'm only
Great
proud.
movie.
And then I shoot a lot of music videos and branded work.
Yeah, that's right. And Christian and I, just before this, we did a commercial project together, kind of, for Splice.
Yeah.
Just where Christian operated for me for what? He did like 3/4 of it, and then you shot the days that I couldn't come.
That's another benefit of operating. If the DP has to step off, then you become the DP.
That's right, and that was a very good point in time of hiring another DP to operate. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I think for now, for me, it's just mostly been like branded commercial kind of stuff. It's definitely like headed in the right direction of what I've been trying to do. So, Chris Brooks, you're hired. You too, Ryan Moore. Okay, Elizabeth Hatcher, you too. So, okay, I got a bunch of questions from the audience here. Let me start at the top here. Okay. I got a couple like kind of simpler questions that I'm just going to answer myself, and then some that I'll throw to you guys. So one of the questions is, what does it take to get into Local 600? How do you plan for that? I would check out their website. I'm sure if you just search ICG Local 600, and they have a whole section on how to join the union. If you call them or email them, they'll kind of like walk you through everything. And if you have like a specific interest, and just let them know, hey, I want to AC or I want to operate. They'll kind of give you the details and the rundown of how to do that.
It's probably worth demystifying the roster stuff too, because that's something that I just did not understand for the longest time.
Yeah, I mean, basically what it is the reason why digital utility you can join just without any days or anything is just because it's a non-rostered position. Because basically there's two things: there's union membership, and then there's roster placement. Roster placement is controlled by the producers, where union membership is controlled by the unions. And so having this non-rostered position, the union can't really do anything to keep you from joining. So it's really just the roster that is the hard thing to get onto. And so at least for Local 600, it's you have to work 100 days non-union in the position that you want to work. In a 3-year period, or 30 days on a union show. Usually something where you have organized it or somebody's organized it and made it union. And so you end up working 30 days on a union show, and that's another way to get the roster placement. Once you get onto the roster, you can then get union membership. But it definitely, it's definitely a confusing process. And like, that's why I think it's best just like, reach out to the Local 600 reps and ask all your questions to them. And they're pretty helpful in terms of getting you to understand what it all is, but it's like unnecessarily complicated.
Right. I've been trying to get my roster status for years. It's so complicated. And it's probably worth mentioning too, like the 100 days, it's not just 100 days of that position. It's 100 days of that position on certain types of work that counts, like it has to be broadcast or theatrical release. That's the really hard thing too, because there's so many, there could be something that was released on TV, but maybe or maybe not, they're going to count it. And it's tricky.
Well, that's
payroll as well. It makes the process so much easier.
I mean, that's kind of been my problem. I feel like is that a lot of my work is like commercials destined for the web, and they won't accept those as a non-union day. It's really only if it's a commercial that's broadcast. So
yeah,
but it's funny because they'll accept short films. So like on a couple of short films I did, I was like, can you just like pay me like minimum wage?
Right. Yeah.
And I just for 8 hours or something, and I can use those days. but then, you know, like a full rate commercial or something, they're like, oh, that doesn't count actually, sorry. See, I think it's Ido asked who owns the footage that you shoot. Usually, so, you know, usually when you, I'd say all the time, it's always going to be the production company that owns the footage. And then
I think I've heard technically that the operator owns the footage unless they otherwise
do
specified in the deal memo. I think. I mean, I don't know when that would ever become an issue, but I think I've read that somewhere.
Yeah, because I know a lot of like photographers actually make a lot of their money from licensing their images, and I think that it's like unless they have a work for hire clause in the deal memo, then you own the footage. Is what it is. But I guess it's kind of like a good question actually. I don't know if it's exactly what they're asking, but like Jason, like how much of the footage are you like keeping for yourself for your reel, or like, you know, because like I'm struggling with that now of like getting footage from a production that isn't like on Facebook, you know?
Right. Yeah. It's like,
so I can like put it on my website.
I think that's a whole like process. Like when you decide, like I decided a few months ago, I was like, okay, it's been a few years. I need to update my reel. And it's just getting the footage is such a big drama. And I usually just try to get the final, some sort of HD copy of the final edit. Getting all the raw footage, it seems like too big of an effort. So
yeah,
I just get a copy of the final project.
Do you ever have issues getting that copy of the final project?
Oh man, there's tons of stuff I'm trying to get. I've been asking for months. That's why I don't have a reel for 3 years.
Yeah. I've heard of people, their monitor will be a recorder as well. And so you can just record like ProRes proxies of days and potentially use that as footage, but I haven't done that.
Yeah, but then you got to save all that stuff, and you're gonna have like 30 terabyte drives, and it's a lot.
Yeah, getting the final export of the project is definitely been the best way.
I mean, if there's something I was really excited about, I'll take, you know, if it still happens to be on the card and didn't cycle through, I'll usually copy that clip just in case.
Yeah. I think for me, I'm always looking for just like the final project, because I want to put, you know, the complete project on my website rather than just like, you know, have this clip for my reel or something. And I think that has been, yeah, just even getting the final project, man, I don't even know the solution except just be annoying, I guess. Persistence.
I mean, because that recent Herbalife thing that I did, it's just like one, you know, on Instagram 1x1 exports, and it's like, oh my god, I just want the full 16:9 version.
Yeah, that is tough. So okay, let's see. So Jason, do you work at all as an operator?
I'd like to. I don't. I feel like the Bay Area doesn't get that a lot. And I've been trying to get into 600 as an operator, but I just haven't completed. I've been at 97 days for about a year, and days expire and new ones come in, and I just cannot get to 100. It's crazy. So I definitely want to operate more on union stuff that's in the Bay Area. I just haven't crossed over on the days, and occasionally I get to, if no one's available, I'll get a call to do something. And they make like a special exception, but it's not often in the Bay Area. Yeah.
So I guess like, yeah, how did you know, how are you even finding those jobs in the first place? And
operator jobs?
Yeah. Or operator jobs.
Like this one that was a union scale one, that was Ben Casillas gave my name because no one in town was available at Steadicam. They need someone who could do Movi. And I told them, I said, I'm not a Movi operator, but I know how to do it. Like I wouldn't, like, I couldn't troubleshoot it on the fly with no problem. And then I get the call sheet, and it's like 70 people. It's this huge Cartier commercial with like an ASC DP, and it freaks me the fuck out. It was crazy. Oh my God. But like that's a total fluke when those things seem to happen.
How did it go?
It went good.
Okay. I
was scared. It was crazy. Like the first shot was going down a street closure, chasing these people. And that was not what Ben told me it was going to be. I thought it was some small little commercial.
Wow, that's kind of nuts.
Yeah.
Christian, what about you? How are you finding operator jobs?
Through other DPs.
Just making friends.
Yep.
I'd say that's pretty accurate.
Operators as well, I should say.
Yeah. So Christian, how involved are you in the color grade process during post?
Oh my gosh.
I love the peanut gallery with Nico
Right, yeah.
up there.
I guess progressive, like it's been getting a bit more and more. I've just been trying to have a stronger hand in it and just keep in touch with them and like you said, be a bit annoying about it. It's different for like narrative projects. Like I will be involved in those.
Yeah, narrative, it's super easy. You're just like, we're going to do color. It's going to be great.
But for like music videos and branded stuff, they usually happen so quickly. And they always tend to be last minute for whatever reason. And it's tough on those.
Yeah, I definitely felt the struggle with the, the branded stuff, where it's just like, you're like trying to like get in the middle of their post process, which is like such a machine. And, it's just like, I don't know. I just like, I had even gone so far on this. I did a bunch of promos for Netflix, and like, it wasn't a very big job, but like there were definitely, they had some like names attached to it. And so like, I was like very invested in making sure that the footage looked good. And so like, I just went so far as to like, on the day I got stills, I had my DIT get me stills. We made LUTs for them so that they could just apply these custom LUTs to each scene. And it would just be, like so foolproof that nothing could go wrong.
Can't mess it up then.
They messed it up somehow. I don't know like what happened, but it was just very, drastically different. And I mean, it's just, somebody else somewhere had opinions along the way, and their opinion was more important than mine, which is fair. I'm just getting hired to shoot it, so that's fine. But yeah, I definitely feel the same way, where it's like, you can only, for the narrative stuff, it's pretty easy to get involved, but for other stuff, it's a little bit more difficult. Have you kind of found that same thing, Jason?
Yeah, it's the same stuff you guys are saying. Just I've got a couple of colorists in the Bay Area I have relationships with now, so I trust them, and I can give them some guidance if I can't be there. But I think it's just about making all the effort to make yourself available to be there if you can. Yeah. Like I tell them, I say, I'm not expecting to be paid. I just want to be involved with it, or I want to, see a version of it and then offer some feedback. And, most of the time they don't even take you up on that. So just, you just got to do the best you can to put it out there, I think.
Yeah.
Will you tell production to contact the colorist, or just say that, hey, these are the couple of colorists that I like to use?
Certain directors I know, they just have the same post path every time. So I just have met these colorists and know them, and yeah.
Cool.
Oh, hey, and Ryan, I think it's also, we're saying like, sometimes when the color goes bad, this one colorist told me like a lot of clients, they have this thing called offline love. They just like fell in love with the footage the way it came off the camera, and they don't want to see it a different way. Mm-hmm. And I think that's just why that happens all the time. Things just looking like they were raw, or just a little bit different than that. They don't want to take it to where you intended to take it.
Yeah, I mean, I and I've definitely experienced exactly that. Like offline love, that like really speaks to me.
Yeah,
I've definitely experienced exactly that. Jason, do you have an Instagram?
I do. Yeah.
You do? Okay.
Just a work one. Yeah.
Has that been very prevalent in terms of getting hired or finding directors or anything like that?
I'm not that good with it. I only update it like once every other month or something. But I had a producer take me out for coffee, and he told me I had to get one. And I think he was right, because after that happened, I did have this sort of upload of work for a little while, but they weren't with new people. They were with people I'd worked with a long time ago, and I think we're just kind of reminded that I was still working. Sure. So it's helpful, but I don't think I've used it to maybe its potential.
Yeah. I feel like Christian, you've probably like I feel like I'm very much in the same boat as you, Jason. Like I have one, but like I probably update it like once every 3-4 months.
Oh
Like
man,
maybe
yeah.
I'll post something.
Yeah.
But Christian, I feel like you're much more active on
Yep.
Instagram. Like, is that
Rammer.
helpful to you?
I like I said earlier, I haven't really reached out to directors on there. I have had just like a couple people reach out and just say that they like my work, but it hasn't really led to any jobs. I did have a focus puller, or he was a DP moving from Minneapolis. He reached out to me, and I grabbed coffee with him. So I'm super responsive to like meeting up with people when they reach out to me. But yeah, like I hire him to be my focus puller now all the time.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Joe.
Joe McNary.
So you're saying it works?
It works for sure. I just need to get the courage, I think, to reach out.
Oh, funny. Let's see. Christian, do you believe every DP has a style? If so, how did you find a style that you liked?
Oh, that's a good one. I don't know. I like to think of myself as a chameleon, and like, I'm there for the director, and I would like to bring a different look and style to each project. But that being said, I mean, I think by way of what projects you say yes to, that in effect creates your style.
Yeah, I could agree with that. Where it's like, yeah, I feel very confident that I could pull off any sort of look, that is out there, but it just, there are some things that I prefer to do, and I definitely like feel like everybody has their like tricks, that they do, and so like those kind of things just end up.
And maybe there's a set of lenses that one is drawn to over another, and that, has a particular look.
Yeah. What do you think, Jason?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's every DP's goal is to not be branded as a certain style, but I think just inherently there's always going to be, like if it's the projects you're drawn to, or if it's just certain things that you kind of default to in a tough time, like those things will just keep reoccurring, I think.
Yeah,
and it's gonna be sort of absorbed. Like like Robert Richardson's famous for hard light, and he does it so well. And I think that people have called that his style.
right.
So Jason, this is somebody else has a question that kind of goes off this. I guess do you try and use your reel then to like show your versatility, or is it to show a very specific thing?
I think you want to show your range, and I think it needs to be specific. I mean, you're also talking to someone who has a terrible reel right now, and not an expert at this at all. But but I think you want to like make reels for the type of work you want to do. So if you want to do narrative fiction work, you should have that, and it shouldn't be mixed with your commercial work or documentary work. I've got a few. I've got one for music videos, one for documentary, one for narrative, one for commercials. So I think at least there needs to be that kind of specific nature to it.
Sure.
If you guys haven't checked it out yet, the ASC released an article talking about reels, which is surprising it took them so long, but it's really good. It's full of great stuff.
Christian, if you don't mind, just do you mind finding that link and just put it in the chat for us? Yeah, I guess I don't know. I feel like because I have really wanted to go for a very specific kind of, I don't know, just like these stylized kind of commercials, I've really tried to like make my website be tailored specifically to that. And it's like, I almost wish that I could not have a montage reel, but it seems very, just like some people, it's just like that's what they want to see. They don't want to see the completed projects, and so I feel like because I don't put very much energy into the montage reel, it just kind of ends up being this mash of these very specific projects that I've picked to show off the kind of work that I want to do. So.
Yeah, I met with an agent's assistant from Artistry at the end of last year, And I asked him about reels and like what he thinks, and he said he doesn't care. He rarely watches them. He'll go and watch projects, and the project is what matters. So he said, have a reel, for sure, have a reel, but like do what you want with it. So I think having it be a representation of your taste or style, I think is super important. Because if people watch it, then it's like, okay, yeah, that's what he's into, or that's what she's into. Yeah, I hope that's what I think.
Okay, real quick, very quick question. Jason, favorite camera to shoot on?
I don't know. Couldn't answer that. I think, honestly, I think they're all so good now. It's like, it's kind of what you got access to. I think just a few years ago, there was a time where this was a choice you had to make.
Sure.
For the look of the movie. And now they're just like, you see all these tests, but like, the differences are so small, you can light to their favor and make them just as good as one. I don't know. I mean, Area clearly is probably the gold standard.
I think it's the clear winner. What do you think?
It's the clear winner,
Christian?
Yeah.
The right one for the job is the best.
All right.
I'm shooting like a run and gun dock branded. I'll shoot on an FS7 or C300, or now the FX9 is a great camera. I just did a project the beginning of this year on that. But if I'm shooting narrative, for sure, like Alexa Mini, or a music video, maybe a SR3 or 416, because we want to shoot on film or something. I think it really just depends.
Yeah, I think I feel like I definitely agree with that. I'll begrudgingly shoot on the C300 or FX9.
Mm-hmm.
Or if it's a Quibi show, then we're going to shoot on the Venice. Or
there you go.
I think it should be lenses, lighting, camera. That's the order that it matters. Especially now, like Jason said, all cameras are so good now.
Let's see. Vatala asked, have you considered owning cinema lenses instead of cameras? Does that seem a better investment in the long run or no? What do you think about this, Jason? Have you invested much in lenses?
I have lenses, yeah. I mean, they're changing. The sensor sizes are changing right now, so it's a tough time to. I mean, I think now it'd probably be wise to look at full frame lenses just to have the future sensors cover it. But for like dock work, I've got a zoom that does not cover full frame. It's kind of, what's best for what you're doing.
Yeah.
Sorry, what was the question, Ryan?
Have you considered owning lenses instead of just owning cameras? What do you think, Christian?
Yeah, I've heard that a lot about that just being a better investment. But yeah, I don't know. Like Jason said, now with full frame, I just own a set of Sigma Art zooms, and I'm able to use those on just like small branded stuff or personal projects, which has helped.
Yeah, I feel like it's just tough because like even cinema lenses, it's just like that's a huge investment right there, so it's not like it's an easier decision than owning a camera. And if anything, it's like if you just bought lenses, you don't have anything to put them on, which
Yeah, I mean, I think having a relationship with a rental house has been super beneficial for me because I can bring them a full rate job through branded, but then maybe I only have $1,000 for a weekend narrative shoot, and I can still get a mini with some good lenses that they have on the shelf. And that's been the best.
Yeah. Let's see, Christian, how do you usually go about just like trying to introduce diversity into your departments and hiring, people of color, non-binary crews, things like that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's super important that we hire people that bring diversity. And I mean, it depends on the project too. I recently shot a music video that was like all female artists and a full like female dance crew. So I made it a point to try to bring on more females and have the energy and dynamic be different. But yeah, I mean, I want to hire the best person for the job. I try to make it a point to have it be diverse, but I don't want to like exclude anyone, if that makes sense.
Sure. What about you, Jason?
I mean, I feel very fortunate that we're in the Bay Area and that I think there's a huge consciousness around this, and a lot of the crews we work with are very diverse, and it's nothing but an asset, I'd say.
Yeah.
For sure. Jason, did you have any mentors as you were starting, and how did that relationship get started? If you did.
Yeah, it's been a few, and they've generally been sort of similar in a lot of ways. They're all much older people, and I don't know, I've always been gravitated towards the elders to an extent. First was that focus puller who was in his 80s, and then he really helped me get started in film loading. And then later at Lee Utterback's, which is a rental house in San Francisco, it's not there anymore, there was a machinist there named Adolf, and his name alone should tell you how old he was.
Is that like what got you into machining stuff?
Yeah, that's what got me into machining was Adolf. And I did the same thing I did with Ken. I bothered him relentlessly to teach me how to machine. And then he, when Lee Utterback's closed, he called me up. He's like, okay, I've got time. I can show you some stuff. And so then that's when I got my mill and lathe machine in the garage. And then I had him come over, bought him coffee, and he started teaching me stuff.
Cool.
And then more recently, I met up with Hiro Narita, who's a DP he's an ASC guy who lives up in Petaluma. And just reached out to him. So I knew a gaffer, Eric Bloom, who knew him, and he introduced us, and we got coffee, and just asked him for general advice and things like that.
Nice. What about you, Christian?
Well, I mean, you, Ryan, and Matt were kind of mentors for me, really. I mean, I don't know. It's evolved, I think. But that was definitely the start of it for me.
Yeah, and just from working on projects together.
Yeah. I mean, it's someone that you can reach out to and ask questions and get help or advice. Yeah,
I feel like that is really it. It's like, for me, it's always just been, people who have been my boss or something on, on other jobs, and really just people that I felt comfortable being like, hey, I have this problem. What would you do?
There's the most recent, sorry to bring it back to the ASC thing, but their most recent issue is all about mentorship.
Right.
I would definitely check it out.
Yeah. I mean, I think that in that, didn't it say something about like, having questions for them and like,
you have to be an active participant in it. And like, I would love to have Bradford Young be my mentor, but you have to, like, in order to have a mentor, you have to know them or be in the same space as them so like going to the events to meet them, or like Jason said, having a mutual friend to put you in touch with them. I mean, that's how it begins.
Nice.
Yeah, when I reached out to Hiro, he was like, Eric had forwarded me the response. He's like, what the hell does this guy want to talk to an old fart like me for? Like, but it was cool. And then he gave me some great advice that was like, it's incredibly helpful.
That's super cool.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to try and mix these questions into one. Is there like an important skill set that you think a DP has, or a personality trait that like makes somebody a successful DP, Christian?
Yeah, I mean, I think a DP needs to be a leader. And I think it helps to be humble. I mean, just being a nice person goes a long way. I think being a great communicator is a huge part about being a DP.
Sure. What do you think, Jason?
Yeah, I mean, I think just to add to that, it's about being really passionate about what you do, and like really falling in love with the stuff you're doing and caring about it.
Yeah, because that will flow through to everyone else on the crew. I mean, I feel like you're there kind of setting the vibe and setting the tone of the set.
Yeah, I definitely feel like of course I would say this, but being very organized, I think, is pretty important as a DP. And definitely like your how you are on set is definitely helpful, but like it's just like you could have all the greatest ideas that anybody could think of, but if you don't remember them on the day and make sure that the gaffer and the key grip know, I want to achieve this thing for this shot, you'll never have the gear there. It'll, and it all won't come together. So I feel like so much of the job as a DP is the logistics of it. And, definitely a creative is a huge part as well, but it's just like, it's hard to even begin to do the creative if you can't comprehend the logistics of it. So, all right. So Jason, if you had to start over, what steps would you take to become a DP in the least amount of time? Are there any skills you would invest in?
I don't think the time rush is really key, because I feel like it's, that all that it's experience is the most important thing. Like, because I think it's all about building your instinct. And I found, like, the further on I go, it's more and more about instinct. And you spend all this time like, oh, should we shoot from this angle and light from that direction? And it's the time of thinking about it. Sometimes you don't really have that. So it's all about the instinct. And I think that comes with experience. So right. I do wish I spent more time in lighting, and I was doing that. I was gripping with Jesse Dana, and on that, up until that film with Alan Chun, where I met that old film motor, and that's when I shifted into camera. Like, I think from that point forward. But I wish I stayed in lighting longer.
All right, good answer.
I like Christian. That about trusting your instinct and trusting your gut. I mean, that's something that I've been actively trying to do more on set of, like, oh, I feel like maybe I should be a little bit lower, but it'll take 5 minutes. It's like I do that now. Like, I feel like if it's going to make it a little bit better by taking the time to do it, that's a cool.
So do you think that there's so the question was, what steps would you take to become a DP in the least amount of time? Are there any skills you would invest in?
I'm not sure. I feel like I'm still becoming a DP. I don't know if that will ever go away. Least amount of time. I mean, I guess just call yourself a DP now and start shooting would be the best way. I don't know. I'm not sure.
I think that actually is a very good answer. It's just like, tell people that you're a DP and start shooting stuff immediately, and just start trying to find people who are just shooting stuff, whether it be unpaid work or not. Just I think that's kind of why I really liked Channel 101, and I bet you did too. It was just like a bunch of people who were like, okay, every month we're going to make something and it's going to screen at this thing at the end of the month. So, I think that, it sounds silly, but I think the fastest way to be a DP is just to start shooting.
That's been done.
Start right away.
Yeah.
Yeah. And also I think it's important to shoot documentary too, because I think that actually is like some of the greatest training ground, because you don't have a lot of control of the situation. It's all about being fast and responding to what's going on and figuring it out and making story choices in the moment.
Yeah, and you're constantly finding frames super quick, and frames and compositions that look good, and judging exposure really quickly. I totally agree with that.
Yeah. Yeah. Watch Maisel Brother movies.
I don't know what those are. What are the?
Yeah. Documentarians, Albert Maisels. He was considered one of the greatest documentary camera persons.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
To add on, watch more movies. I wish to kind of bring it back to the beginning of film school for a second, it was super technically based, and I wish now that I watched more movies. It's something that I'm making a point to do more now, and figure out what you like and why you like it, or what you don't like and why you don't like that.
Just helps to give you new ideas to apply, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Okay, Mina asks, this is for Jason, I'll start with, what does prepping a shoot look like for you guys? How much are you interfacing with other departments besides Grip and Electric?
I mean, like, to talk about like Ulrich's film specifically, I was pretty involved in that, like, very early on. I mean, I was reading that script for like 9 years, I think, or 8 years. So, and he started bringing in like the production designer, I think it was maybe 6 months before. And we met like in that garage that we spent so much time in, and like, kind of like, okay, if we put stairs here and it goes up this many steps from this angle, like it'll look like the staircase just keeps going on. So like we were talking about that stuff really early on. Yeah.
Christian, what about you?
Yeah. Similarly to Jason, I'll use a short film, like a sci-fi short film that I shot, where we was super involved with the production designer. And I originally came up with the idea to just do like a top softbox over this whole area where there's like an ensemble cast doing a bunch of blocking. And then we ended up deciding to make it a practical. So then they built this sort of like lattice frame to go underneath the softbox to make it look like it was an existing lighting fixture. But yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of collaboration and communication with other departments early on, for sure. And that's kind of what I was trying to say about like with the anxiety as well, is the more you do that, the earlier on, the better off it'll be, usually.
Okay. Brian Reichart asked, what do you guys do for health insurance? Is it all through the union? So like sorry, what'd you say, Christian?
Sorry, I just said great question.
Great question. So yeah, I mean, like, honestly, that's like what keeps me doing the set lighting jobs now, is like, I'll do just enough to work to get my hours to have healthcare. And then once I have that, like, I'm not available for that anymore. And so yeah, that's how I've gotten healthcare, is just through the union. What about you guys, Christian?
Covered California. I'm not in the union, and even if I were in the union, I don't think I would get enough hours anyways to qualify. So yeah, I have my own health insurance.
What about you, Jason?
Yeah, same, just covered California. And I just like a few years ago, I got health insurance after not having it for so many years. And I think I did like 10 years of healthcare in like one day at Kaiser. But yeah, just I hope at some point I can get it through 600, and I'm working enough where that happens. That's something I really want to happen.
Yeah. I mean, I think for me, it's been like, I've, feel like, be like once every 6 months, maybe I'll get a union job, and I'll be like, okay, great. This is like 5 more days that I won't have to work doing set lighting. And, it's like, okay, I can kind of transition that over time, but, it's kind of getting to the point for me too, where I'm just like, maybe I'm getting over it, and I'll just, give up and go for Covered California, and I'll be fine. So as far as color goes, Jason, have you tried baking the look in and just not shooting log, or, making a custom LUT, something like that?
I've done stuff with reds where we have a LUT that we built. It's not baking it in, because the way for red, it's all metadata, so it can all be undone for better or for worse. But at least you can create that and suggest it through the edit, and hopefully in post they'll have that offline love of the LUT that you wanted. A lot of commercials doesn't seem to happen because it moves so fast. There just isn't time to get together and have a prep day and find a LUT you want to build and do it. But on movies, we do that.
Did you find that helped to get your look in post and have them like that look later?
I'd like to think so. I hope so.
Yeah.
Yeah. But really, one thing I've like over time, just knowing it's really the production design. It's the production design and the lighting that's really setting the look. Like as far as the LUTs go, I mean, you're just interpreting the light where things fall off here and there, and some color hue shifts. But I think the best control of the look is in the lighting and production design.
Yeah, absolutely. What do you think, Christian?
I have baked in the look a couple of times when I knew that the turnaround was super fast, but I don't now. I wouldn't do that. I would just make sure to send just even like a low contrast 709 LUT over email, and just be like, hey, please make sure to use this. Just because baking it in is so destructive.
I feel like it's kind of mean.
It's really difficult that way. So, I have a couple of times, but I don't think I would now.
Yeah.
Sorry, was there another part of the question?
That's it. Just have you tried baking it in? And yeah, I mean, it's not really something that I've gone the route of. I've always tried to do the non-destructive thing, like you said, of emailing a lot or just trying to be involved that way.
And I think cameras are different now too. Like a few years ago, it's like you'd have to bake it in. Like when I was on my 7D, create this look, and then you're monitoring this like almost black and white thing that you can't scope with. It's impossible to work with. But now it's like you have monitors that can put a 709 on top of your raw look. So I think it's not as essential anymore.
Mm-hmm. Jason, do you have any thoughts on getting an agent? I don't know. Do you have an agent?
Yeah, I have a rep. Yeah.
How has that been for you? Is that beneficial or?
It's good. She's not tied in with one of the major agencies like Artistry or a WPA or Gersh or any of those. So she brings me stuff. It's not as much as I'd like it to be. And it's definitely very helpful to not have to like talk rate with producers on commercial work. Mm-hmm. And and with the rep, for me, it's only for commercial work. It's not for my films, just because there's no money in that anyways. So it's like 10% off nothing is not good for anybody. So,
Jason, how long have you had the rep? And then and what was the process like? Did you approach them or did they approach you?
Yeah, it's been a couple years, and then it kind of goes back to the mentorship thing. So the last person I was pulling focus with was a DP named Scott Butfield, and he became probably a mentor that was most important to me of the several I've been in touch with. And he told me, he said, you watch movies you like and you look up who shot it and look up who represents them and make a list and start calling them. And I did that, and none of that worked out. I had a list of like 70 people, and I sat in the backyard with whiskey next to me to get the courage to do it. And just you couldn't even get through past the secretary, and they would didn't go anywhere. No. But then the agent I do have, she represents other DPs I know, and I just cold called her, and then she reviewed my work and said she would take me on in her roster. So I was fortunate for that. Right. But as far as the agents who represent cinematographers doing bigger movies and things that's I've been told it's like either they find you after something's been through festivals, or you're recommended through someone in that network. So it's pretty untouchable if you're on the outside.
Nice.
And did you show your agent your commercial reel, or just your website with all your reels on it?
I like prepped, like I sent after I called on the phone first and made like a voice contact and talked it over what I was looking for, and then I sent my commercial reel because I knew that's what she did specifically. So I tailored it for commercial stuff.
Nice.
Yeah. Something I learned in that meeting that I had with the assistant.
And so, wait, sorry, Christian, that assistant, were they doing mostly DPs for commercial or for narrative?
They do both, but I think he assisted the commercial rep.
Okay, so you're talking about, montage reels not being very good for somebody to look at.
Yeah.
It's more of a commercial thing, you think?
Since you're only 30 to 60 seconds anyways, so you can just watch the spot. Mm-hmm. What was I going to say? Oh yeah, I learned that they hip pocket people, which I hadn't really heard that before, but they'll essentially pass you jobs without putting you on their roster or actually signing you, which I thought was cool. I didn't know that. So, even if they're like fostering new talent, they may not sign you, but they could still pass you a few jobs or something.
Gotcha.
Oh, and I think it's worth, like, a couple agencies I talked to, like, they'd asked if I was in the union, and that was the beginning of the conversation. It was over immediately. Because, they want to be able to represent people they can send out to work on, like, real and big jobs. So that was, like, a quick stop.
Gotcha. So let's see. I'm just going to go for one more question here, and then we're going to wrap it up just because we're reaching the end. Okay. Have you ever been a director / DP, and would you want to? Jason?
I would like to direct some films, yeah. And I couldn't imagine not shooting them. So I feel like I'd be put in that position. I was a camera operator on Fraser's movie, and he's a DP by trade. Fraser Bradshaw, if you guys don't know him, and he did a film called The Deep Sky. So he directed it and DP'd it, but I was his camera operator. So I feel like if I did a movie, I'd like that structure. I would have an operator for sure, and I wouldn't be physically behind the camera, but I'd want to be in charge of the photography.
Nice. What do you think, Christian? Have you ever direct DP?
No.
No.
I like a couple times in film school, but no, and I don't really have the aspirations to.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. Have very little interest in directing, but I feel like I get enough at any temptation I have to direct. Like I get enough just from suggesting things to the director.
Mm-hmm.
What if we did this? And it's like I feel like usually that satisfies me. So yeah. So I think that about wraps it up. If you guys have any further questions for the three of us, feel free to reach out directly, and can continue to answer whatever questions you have. But yeah, hopefully this is kind of given everybody a little bit of insight into what it's taken for some people to do it. So somebody's asking how do they reach us on social media?
Should we just put it in the chat here?
Yeah, just put whatever you want in the chat.
Hey, what's up, Raghav? Didn't see you in there.
But yeah, that's pretty much it.
Thank you, Ryan.
Yeah.
Thanks for having us here.
Yeah, thank you for being here.
Oh, wait, before everybody goes, oh my gosh, don't go anywhere. I really need everybody to fill out this survey.
Please.
We just need to know what other workshops we could do, how this workshop was, if you guys would change it at all. It's just really helpful to get your feedback, and just kind of figure out how we could do things a little bit better. So I'm gonna put the link in the chat here. Okay, there's the link. There you go. Yeah, so for sure, fill out that survey, and yeah, hope everybody has a good rest of their day. Thanks.
Well, thank you everyone for joining in. This was super cool.
Yeah, thanks everybody.
Thanks for being here, guys. All right. Take care.